Hello everyone, I am back and today I want you to learn about Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein. He was one of the greatest scientific minds in our country. However, it is very important to know his life story and the little problems that he had at school and how those little problems did not stop him from achieving greatness today. So, I want us to take a look at his story through the story on a beam of light. On a beam of light. A story of Albert Einstein. Over 100 years ago, as the stars swirled in the sky, as the earth circled the sun, as the March winds blew through a little town, by a river, a baby boy was born. His parents named him Albert. Albert turned 1 year old and didn't say a word. Albert turned 2 and didn't say a word. Albert turned 3 and hardly said a word at all. He just looked around with his big, curious eyes. Looked and wondered, looked and wondered. His parents thought, so different. But so dear, his mother thought. His parents worried. Little Albert was so different. Was there something wrong? But he was their baby, so they loved him, no matter what. No matter what. One day, when Albert was sick in bed, his father brought him a compass, a small round case with a magnetic needle inside. No matter which way Albert turned the compass, the needle always pointed north, as if held by an invisible hand. Albert was so amazed his body trembled. Suddenly, he knew there were mysteries in the world, hidden and silent, unknown and unseen. He wanted more than anything to understand those mysteries. Remember, Albert has a very curious mind. His parents might be a little worried, but just with a little bit of time, we'll see that these worries were actually curiosity. Albert started asking questions. Remember, when we're curious, we ask a lot of questions. Albert started asking questions. Questions at home, questions at school. So many questions that some of his teachers told him he was a disruption of class. They said he would never amount to anything unless he learned to behave like all the other students. But Albert didn't want to be like the other students. He wanted to discover the hidden mysteries in the world. One day, Albert was zipping through the countryside of his bicycle. He looked up at the beams of sunlight speeding from the sun to the earth. He wondered, what would it be like to ride one of those beams? And in his mind, right then and there, Albert was no longer on his bicycle, no longer on the country road. He was racing through space on a beam of light. It was the biggest, most exciting thought Albert had ever had, and it filled his mind with questions. Albert began to read and study. He read about light and sound, about heat and magnetism, and about the gravity, the invisible force that pulls us down toward our planet and keeps the moon from floating away from outer space. Remember how I always tell you that reading is important. You can see an example of how reading helped Albert Einstein. with his curious mind. Along with reading, he also read about numbers. Albert loved numbers. They were like a secret language for figuring things out. But all that reading still didn't answer all of Albert's questions, so he kept on reading, wondering, and learning. When Albert graduated from college, he wanted to teach the subjects he loved, all the things he had read about all those years. But Albert couldn't find a job as a teacher, so he got another job. A simple, quiet job in a government office. An office where he worked with the other people's ideas and inventions. He did his work very well and very quickly. So quickly that he had lots of extra time to think and wonder. Think and wonder. Albert watched a lump of sugar dissolve and disappear into his hot tea. How could this happen? He watched the smoke from his pipe swirl and disappear into the air. How could one thing disappear from another? Remember, he is doing a lot of thinking and a lot of wondering. Then, he began to figure it out. He thought about the idea that everything is made out of a teeny tiny moving bits of stuff, far and too tiny to see little bits called atoms. Some people didn't believe that atoms existed, but Albert's figuring helped prove that everything in the world is made of atoms. Even sugar and tea, even smoke and air, even Albert and you. Even this book is made of atoms. Then Albert thought about motion. He realized that everything is always moving. Moving through space, moving through time, even sound and sleep we're moving as our planet circles the sun and our lives travel into the future. Albert saw time and space as no one ever had before. Albert wrote down his new ideas, put them into envelopes, and sent them to science magazines. The magazines printed everything Albert sent. He hoped that scientists and professors would be interested, and they were very interested indeed. They asked Albert to come work with them and teach with them. For the first time in his life, people started to say, Albert is a genius. Now Albert could spend all of his days doing what he loved, imagining, wondering, figuring, and thinking. Albert Einstein is a genius. Albert thought about very, very big things, like the size and shape of the entire universe. He thought about very, very, very small things, like what goes on inside the atoms that everything is made of. He thought about mysterious forces, like magnetism and gravity. He discovered whole new ways to understand how all of these things worked. Too small to see, much too small. Everywhere Albert went, he would think and think. One of Albert's favorite thinking places was his little sailboat. He loved to let his mind wander as the wind blew him across the water. Sometimes, when Albert was having a tough time with a tricky problem, he would put it aside and play his violin. Music made Albert happy. He said it helped him think better. Albert even chose his clothes for thinking. His favorites were his comfy old saggy, baggy sweaters and pants, and shoes without socks. He said now that he was a grown-up, no one can tell him to put on his socks. My feet are happier without socks. In the town where he lived, he became known for wandering around, deep in thought, sometimes eating an ice cream cone, always recognizable with his long, wild hair, which by then had become quite a while. So here, as I showed you in the beginning, is Albert Einstein. You can see his wild hair that he became known for. But that wild hair helped him think and think and think. Everywhere Albert went, he tried to figure out the secrets of the universe. And he never forgot about the beam of light that he rode so long ago in his imagination. Albert figured out that no person, no thing, no ever zoom through space as fast as a beam of light. He figured that if you could travel near the speed of light, crazy things would happen. Only minutes would pass for Albert, while years and years went by for the rest of us. This idea was so amazing, people didn't believe it at first, but scientists today have proven that it's true. It's true, it's true, it's true. It's true. Albert thought and figured out until the very last minute of the very last day of his life. He asked questions never asked before, found answers never found before, and dreamed up ideas never dreamed before. Albert's ideas helped him build spaceships and satellites that traveled to the moon and beyond. His thinking helped us understand our universe as no one ever had before. But still, Albert left us many big questions. Questions that scientists are working on today. Questions that someday you may answer by wondering, thinking, and imagining. The end. And I want to end this read aloud by reading his quote, something he said when he was alive. And it reads, "The important thing is to not stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing." So, taking Albert Einstein's advice, I want you to never stop thinking, wondering, and imagining.